Talmud, the traditions from the Talmud, the tradition from the Ashkenazim, the tradition from the Sfaradim. We use all the different traditions together.
Wonderful.
And now we can start teaching. Yoav, what's the situation?
Oh my God.
We have a Mishnah,
But not the right one.
Which Mishnah are we on?
Rabbi Ishmael. It should be Yud Aleph according to some.
Depends which counting you have.
Further on, one more.
This is the one. That's it. Only the small Mishnah here. It's the one we're going to teach or learn together. Rabbi Ishmael. Okay? So according to what I agreed with Rav Meir, I will be starting, and then Rabbi Meir will continue, and then we will discuss this a little, and maybe we'll have time for questions and so on. It's yes, Rabbi Ishmael. Rabbi Ishmael. This is the first time we meet him in Pirkei Avot. He was one of the greatest of our Tanaim. He lived in the parallel time of Rabbi Akiva, more known, who is to most of you maybe. He's coming in the next Mishnah. Rabbi Ishmael was a contemporary of Rabbi Akiva, was a close friend, but also disagreed with Rabbi Akiva on most big issues. There are all kinds of stories about his earliest childhood. There is a story about him having been taken a prisoner or amongst the prisoners to Rome in his early childhood, and Rabbi Yeshua, he came to Rome, and for a big sum of money he released him, and he then brought him up to be one of the greatest of the Tanaim, of the third generation of Tanaim, of Mishnah teachers. We're talking again about the end of the first century and the beginning of the second century and the second century. He had a great love of people. Had a great love. Was very connected to people. He had a more simple learning of the texts. He did not go into the same kind of study of the text as Rabbi Akiva, who studied every single detail, every extra letter which is in a word, every crown on a letter. For him, it was the simple meaning of the text. He gave us the principle that Dibra Torah b'lishon b'nei Adam, that the Torah is given in a language which people are supposed to understand, and this was his way of interpreting the Torah. He also gave us the 13 principles of interpreting the Torah, which we read in the beginning of the morning services every single day, the 13 guiding principles of how to interpret the Torah, where we mention Rabbi Ishmael every single day before we start the morning prayers. So that his 13 guiding principles are very important. And I'll just also mention one more thing about him that he also said, because he didn't want it to be too difficult on people, that there were many of the rabbis who, after the destruction of the temple, wanted to enact difficult enactments on the people, that they should feel very strongly the destruction of the temple. And he said, you can't enact enactments on people which they won't be able to keep. You have to take into consideration how people are, and that they have to be able to live with their enactments. A principle which says, "En gozrim gzeira she'en hatzibur yachol la'amod ba." You can't make an enactment, you can't make a protection which the public can't keep. It doesn't help. It's not helpful. You have to take into consideration where the general public is and not be too harsh with the general public. So these are some of the ideas of Rabbi Ishmael before we go into this Mishnah. Now, this Mishnah gives us really three principles, and especially the two first, a little difficult to translate, and even not only to translate to English, but difficult to translate to Hebrew, difficult to understand. The words are difficult to understand. Heve kal lerosh. The words are, what does that mean even? Be kal, kal means easy in the general Hebrew language. La rosh is like Rosh Hashanah, to the head, to the leader, somehow to the leader. So here it is translated, be suppliant to a superior. Okay? I'll give it maybe a little broader translation according to the generally accepted meaning of what this expression is, that it means that you should accept the superior. You should accept those who are ruling, should accept the teacher, you should accept the rabbi, you should accept the authority, you should be kal, you should be easy with, you should not be tough with them, you should be acceptable towards somebody who has authority. That is generally to the elder, also to those who are elderly, those who have authority, but also to the elderly. Everything is included in this word rosh.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the first expression. The second expression is even more difficult. And we'll go into different maybe interpretations, which I won't do just now. Noach, you should be nice. Here it's translated submissive, which I don't even know why it's translated that way. Noach, you should be nice, you should be pleasant. Letishchoret. Tishchoret, the generally accepted translation of that, and we have 5 or 6 or 7 different interpretations of this word, which is a very difficult word. The general accepted translation from the Bartanura translation is from the word shachor, which means black, black hair, not those who have, like in the beginning, those who are elderly, they have white hair, like me. Those who have black hair still are the young people. You should be nice. You should be also nice if you're older, if you're Talmid Chacham or you're older, you should be nice also to the young people. You should have respect, special respect for the elderly, but you should also be nice to the young people. And Heve Mekabel et Kol Adam B'Simcha, and all the people, both the older and the young people and all other people, every person, you should accept with receive happily. That is the those are the three advices, and I want to just put them into a context. The context, which is the interpretation of the Abarbanel on this Mishnah, he says, he puts it into the context of former Mishnayot which we've studied. He says that if you remember some weeks back, which was before the summer holidays, which you probably have forgotten everything, like what I have maybe forgotten everything we studied, that we learned there some Mishnayot back. Yoav, are you still with us?
I'm here.
Okay, you can go back maybe 3 Mishnayot. It says there, 3 Mishnayot back. No, the one forward here. We read that one with whom men are pleased, God is pleased. But anyone with men are displeased, God is displeased. And we learned in that Mishnah that you should be good with all human beings, with every human beings, and then God will be pleased. And there was not in any in this Mishnah, there was no differentiation between different kinds of people. And then we had the next Mishnah, which talked about, if you go forward, you have that we had different kinds of people who you shouldn't be too much together with. Those people who are profane the sacred things, or despise festivals, or despise other human beings in public, those people, they are in groups of people who you should not be together with. Those are groupings of people you should not be together with. And then we go back to our Mishnah, and then we see that Rabbi Ishmael says it's true that we should have a relationship to everybody, but there is still a classification amongst everybody, that there are people who you should have special respect for. And those people are the elderly, those who have authority, the teachers, the rabbis. You should have special respect for those people, the elderly, because they have a wisdom of life and so on. So even though you have respect for everybody, and you should be nice also to young people, even if you're Talmid Chacham, you're a very wise person and so on, you're learned, you're elder, should be nice to young people also, and not show them any form for despise or something just because they're young and so on. But there are also classifications with people who demand special respect. And one interpretation even goes in and says this is said to people who are very learned And sometimes they tend to despise others who get positions. And you should respect that they have a position, even if you think that you're equal to them or even know more than them, but they have a position, and because of their position, you should they need to have that respect. Otherwise, they can't do their position properly. So you should give them the respect of the position. At the same time, don't despise if you're a postdoctorate in the university and comes in a student who's the first day in his university. Be nice to him. Be nice. Include him or her. Be nice to everybody, so that they feel included, and be nice to everybody. So these are the principles here which classify a little the principles, the overall principles which we learned in the previous Mishnayot. Rabbi Ishmael, the one who put these Mishnayot in order, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, he put Rabbi Ishmael here in order to classify what we've learned before. And I now throw the ball on to my dear friend and colleague, Rab Meir, please.
Thank you very much. Actually, we can stop here. We have read the Mishnah and got a completely accurate and precise explanation of the Mishnah, and that's it. So we can go home and prepare for Rosh Hashanah now. But anyhow, without saying anything, I can't do it. That's my job, to speak. So I'll say some words. Anyhow, thank you, and Yishar Koach to Rabbi Michael. I will do two things. One is that I will add to the third part of the Mishnah, that is the meeting with human beings. If you remember, we had, as Rabbi Michael said, we have three parts of the Mishnah. First, we have that Rosh, whatever the head of something. Then we have Tishchoret, whatever that will mean. And the third part is, and that is more understood, that you should greet every person with joy. Greet every person with joy. So I will try to explain that by quoting the explanation of the Rambam, and that explanation will fit completely with Rav Michal's explanation, and it will also fit with what I am about to try to say about this Mishnah. So let's start with that third part. So on the words, greet every person with joy, the Rambam writes the following. You have to greet every person, little or big, a free man or a slave, every human being of mankind with joy. Now, these words are by themselves, without them being an explanation to a Mishnah, like a precious jewel, a treasure that we should keep in somewhere. It's worth much. It doesn't matter at all who you meet, important or in your eyes less important, black or white, big or small, of course man or woman, if he or she belongs to that or that nation or to another nation, you meet the highest one, the lowest one on the social ladder, meet them with joy. And that is what the Rambam says here, and I feel that this is a present that the Rambam, a gift that he gave to us, and we should keep it. You meet a personality, a soul, who is created in the image of Hashem. And it doesn't matter who he really or she is, and meet him with joy. Martin Buber once said that living is to meet people. living is to meet people. That's the joy. I meet someone with an eternal value. Wow. So the Mishnah says when you meet someone, there is a great joy in the actual meeting with the other one. It doesn't matter who is, as we just said. Now so if I go to the explanation of what Michael said beforehand, so the two first ones, we speak about some special relationship that we have to them for different reasons. Then it turns to, but don't think that you can have some bad relationship with all the others. No. On the contrary, you should meet them with joy and so on. Now, after saying this, we could stop here also. We got all something more, and that was important. But I would like to go back and what Michael said is for sure correct, and that word tishchoret is kind of difficult, and you, Michael, explained it from the word shachor, meaning a young man. I mean, I suppose that the young man in the Scandinavian countries was perhaps not tishchoret, but something else, which speaks about a blonde person. Anyhow, tishchoret is a young man or woman. But I would like to show you another explanation given by some of our great medieval commentators, and I will go to Rabbeinu Yonah. Rabbeinu Yonah, he lives at the time of the Ramban in the 13th century. He's actually a cousin of the Ramban, and their children got married with each other as well. So they were very close. And he says the following. He says that Tishchoret is a master, I would say in Swedish, en herre, perhaps a high clerk, an official. And it's interesting with Rabbeinu Yonah, when he writes this in Hebrew, of course, he all of a sudden uses the word signore. He writes in Hebrew, signore, a man, an important man perhaps. And then we have Rosh, that's the head, and we have an important man as well. And I would like to follow what he says. And then he says the following: you should make yourself kal, and as Rabbi Michael said, easy, perhaps not important. When you come in contact with the Rosh, the head, that might be the king, the ruler, you should show the difference. He is the ruler, and I'm something very, very low. I'm ready to be a servant of his or something like that. And then you behave accordingly. You are the kal, you see, and he is the Rosh. And Rabbeinu Yonah quotes a verse in Proverbs saying, do not exalt yourself in the king's presence. Don't boost or don't make something important about yourself in the king's presence. Do not stand in the place of nobles. That's the second part of it. And he says, that's actually, he says, what the Mishnah, according to his explanation, speaks about. That is, it's some kind of piece of advice. You should honor, don't come too close to the ones who are ruling. That we've learned in another Mishnah in the first chapter, but behave the way you should be. Show not that you are like him or something. That is the best thing to do. And also you have an important person, some clerk of the king, a signore, this tishchoret. You should be noach. You don't have to be kal really, but you should be noach with him in a good way. Turn to him and be in contact with him, and that's still with honor, of course. And then comes the third part. that we actually explained already in the in the beginning of my words here. That is to meet every human being with joy and so on. Now, how do we put these pieces together? And I thought about that today. So I didn't. We spoke together a bit yesterday, me and Michael, but today I had an idea of what I should say about this. So it's completely new, also for me. Rabbi Ishmael, as Rabbi Michael said, lived in the same generation as Rabbi Akiva. And they were, as we also understood from Rabbi Michael, they were in the time just after the catastrophe of the destruction of the Jewish nation in its country, and the destruction of the temple, and Jews spreading out in the country of Israel and later on all over. And perhaps Rabbi Ishmael says the following, and that fits very much to what Rabbi Michael said beforehand, when Rabbi Ishmael said, you can't be completely hopeless after the destruction. He said, no. We heard what Rabbi Michael quoted. You shouldn't go to an extreme about what you feel and how you handle that which I'm sure was a disaster, a catastrophe that we have never met. They had never met beforehand, but then Rabbi Ishmael perhaps comes along and says you shouldn't be desperate. You shouldn't be completely hopeless, although they lost everything. The Jews of those times, their nation, the temple, and many other people physically got killed and so on. So Rabbi Ishmael comes along and says, my friends, there is still an order in the world. The world is not without an order. There is an order. There is a ruler, and we can discuss very much how to relate to that ruler, positively, negatively, and so on. But he says that there is some kind of order still. The world hasn't lost its order. So you should behave towards this Rosh in a correct way. He is there. You should be calm, and you should show that you are not on the same level at all, but perhaps not be too close to him, and not to be involved. And the same thing goes with the Tishroret, the person that lives next to you, who is the king's clerk. You should relate to him in a correct way. Then comes the third part. To have, when you joy, I joy after the destruction of the temple. Simcha, you should meet and greet everyone with simcha, and that perhaps means also a message to the ones that might be, as I said before, hopeless and so on, and a belief in mankind concerning the Rosh, the leader, the ruler, and the other one. Okay, they are who they might be, but all human beings as such should be something that you can believe in. Jewish messianic beliefs says that meeting people is joy, because everyone is a part of a hope for mankind and its future. Mankind will always overcome evilness and nightmares, and it will rise to a new morning again. And that we find when we meet another man or woman. We see his face, his eyes, his soul to a certain extent. And perhaps is this kind of a message of Rabbi Ishmael to his fellow fellow Jews in very, very, very difficult times. Perhaps I could say, which isn't really a true thing, but we could say it as a rabbi who says Rasha sermon, Rabbi Ishmael, he taught us a way how to understand the text, to translate it into a new understanding. He gave us 13 ways of explaining the text, and perhaps you could say here he gives us a way how to sort of explain a very, very hard reality and give it a new name, a new way of understanding it, or something like that. But as I said before I started, we could have done without this. We had a very good explanation beforehand by Rav Michael, but this is also something that could be said about this small but very interesting Mishnah. Yes.
Well, Yisher Koach Gadol for Rav Meir, not least for the last words, which I think were very deep into understanding of the time, and maybe that's why also he disagreed with Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Akiva wanted to turn the clock back in the revolution against in the Bar Kokhba revolution, and which actually in lives costs much more than after the destruction of the temple, and was really the final blow. And Rabbi Ishmael was against that, and in a way wanted to find other ways to deal with the situation which the Jewish people was in after the destruction. And this was a deep disagreement, which of course historically, no doubt that Rabbi Ishmael was right in that discussion. So maybe that also reflects in what you said, Rav Meir.
Yes.
How you deal with that situation, how you can find a way and joy in not being too harsh, at the same time as we remember the temple and we pray for its restoration, and you understand that how difficult it must have been then, and we hold it present the whole time, the return of the Shekhinah to Zion, and how central this is, a central motive in everything we do. You find the balance of continuing life and meeting and existing in the time after. So I want to go back to the Mishnah still. Maybe there are many other interpretations, and I think that we'll confuse our co-learners with many other interpretations of the word tishchoret. We now heard two interpretations, and I don't want to give another series of interpretations, but maybe say two other things here which are important. Of the first expression, the word kal, that something is you should be kal, you should be, let's say, respectful, easygoing in a respectful manner to those who are in authority, the elderly. And this word kal, there is we talk about, and it's a lot here, especially in this month of Elul, and it's and now we come to the high holidays, and we talk about who can go up to the mountain of God. Mi ya'aleh behar Hashem. Who can go up? Those who have a clean heart. And they can go up, they can assign to the mountain of God. They can meet God. Now, if you want to go up on the mountain, even if you're better to walk up mountains, you know that if you want to go up, you should not have too much overweight with you. It should be easy for you. You should have you shouldn't have too much extra luggage with you. That's why you should have a clean heart. If you have all kinds of things on your heart, if you have if you have all kinds of things which bother you, and the extra weight of problems and of all kinds of material things which not material problems, because we all have problems, but if we have, so part of being kal is to get rid of, during this time of Elul and the 10 days of penitence until Yom Kippur, that we get rid of all of that until we come to Rosh, until we come to the top of the mountain, until we come to God, to meet God, that we can get away of all the extra weight we have, which is the extra weight of sins, of problems, that we get away of that, and this way our heart becomes easier, and then we can go to Rosh, then we can get to the top of the mountain, and we can reach that place. I think this is a very nice interpretation here of Rosh being to God, to the top of the mountain. God will meet us at the top of the mountain, and we should have an easy walk up to the top of the mountain. So this is one extra interpretation which I would like to add to the other interpretations we've heard. I want to mention one other thing which I think is important, which deserves a full shiur or many shiurim, about Rosh being the elderly, which really says that the source of Rabbi Ishmael here is not just a saying of the sages, but is based on what we learn in the Torah. That the Torah says that there is a classification of people, and that we don't treat everybody alike. The Torah says, "Mipnei seiva takum v'adarta pnei zaken," that for the elderly, you have to raise, you have to get up, and you should respect the face of the elderly. That there is a special classification of respect. So what Rabbi Ishmael says here is not just a rabbinic saying, but it's based on Torah law. This is Torah law, but there is a special classification. And the elderly which we talk about are not just Talmidei Chachamim, people who are wise in Torah and so on, who we respect because of their Torah wisdom, but they're people who, both Jews and non-Jews, by the way, which also the Rambam, who mentioned specifically, as Rav Meir said, mentioned specifically non-Jews when it comes to the last part of this Mishnah. He also mentions when it comes to the respect of the elderly, and who you have to raise for, get up for, he also mentions specifically that the rule of respect and getting up and showing respect and getting up in a bus or in whatever situation you are, showing every sign of respect, it applies equally for a Jew and for a non-Jew, having whether he is a Talmid Chacham or whether he is not a Talmid Chacham, there is no difference whatsoever. The elderly you need to get up for, and the Rambam continues and says, and this is we have that in different places in not specifically the Rambam, but different places in Chazal, that the elderly can teach us. They can teach us how to pray. They teach us how to deal with other people, how to have order in our house. The elderly teach us of their wisdom, what they've gone through in life, there's so much we can learn from elderly, and even also is mentioned that a Talmid Chacham who has forgotten all of his Torah, senility is not just a new phenomena in our time, that somebody has become senile and he knew Torah and he forgot everything. Then it says that you should relate to such a Talmid Chacham who forgot all his Torah like an Aron Kodesh, like an ark, the ark of the Torah, which has its own kedusha, its own holiness. It's a holy object because it held all of the Torah, and it should be respected as somebody who held the Torah, even though there's nothing of the Torah left, even though the Talmid Chacham forgot all of the Torah, should still have the same respect and the holiness which an Aron Kodesh, which we have for Aron Kodesh, for the ark which holds the Torah scrolls in our synagogue. So I think that this is also part of this first part of the Mishnah, which has its base in Torah law. I wanted to add this point. We're getting older, so it's important to talk about.
Yes, thank you. I would like to speak about that, to say something. It's of course to honor the old people, the elderly people, is a mitzvah by itself. It's a goal. It's an aim that you have to, but it's also a sign of who you are, what kind of society you are. The more you are ready to honor the elderly, the old ones, you are sort of the opposite of what went on in Sparta, in Greece, where they threw the old people from a mountain and threw them away, and they were killed because they weren't productive any longer. They don't do anything. They don't add anything. They don't add any money to society and so on. So there's no need for them any longer. And the more we are able to say, as you stress now, the more we're able to say that honoring the elder generation is an important value And mitzvah, it actually shows that we don't count everything with money and if one is productive or not productive, but we're able to honor them, then we have a better society. That's I think so. Anyhow.
Good. Do we have any questions from our honored Chachamim students? It's a small Mishnah, but we thought to start with a new Mishnah would be too much for one night.
Perhaps we can say, Michael, what you said, that hint that it's to reaching the Rosh of the mountain. It should be Kal and it should take away. Perhaps we can see it also as a hint to Rosh Hashanah, a Kal Rosh. We are preparing ourselves in these days of Slichot and so on to take away something of that overweight and even to be able to reach Rosh Hashanah in a better way. So therefore, we wish all of you, I think, Shana Tova Tikatevu V'Techatemu.
Shana Tova, thank you so much. Sorry for the practical things in the start. We are always waiting for Moshe David to help. He can't be here today, so I had to try to help. And thank you so much, Meir and Abba. And wish all Shana Tova. We have another study next week, just to say it. But we can still say Shana Tova already now. So thank you all for participating, and especially for the rabbis for the very important and good words.
Thank you for participating. And we actually, I don't remember when we've started so well in time, Yoav. So
I don't know what was wrong. It worked out.
It worked very well. Everything was well.
So happy to hear. I was scheduled in a meeting with another rabbi from Oslo. So we tried to help and follow.
Shana Tova, Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, and thank you for tonight.
שנה טובה, לילה טוב.
Welcome.
תודה, תודה.
Shana Tova.
Well.